guys! So this is part 2 of the special Mother's Day episode. Stay tuned! Hey everybody, it's Vivi at Home Writes. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be in honor of Mother's Day. Okay, so section 3 is if you read about moms. So this section's going to get a little long. Your favorite books that kind of have a focus on a mom. So I know a lot of people chose like Harry Potter and things like that. I actually am going way classic with one of my absolute favorite books that I discovered when I was a preteen that I have read a billion times and watched all the movies and all of the movies 40 times. And so my favorite book that had a focus on a mother that I've seen in a new light since I have kids now versus when I was young is Pride and Prejudice, the mother in Pride and Prejudice. She is like the pinnacle of the nosy, everybody thinks she's a clucking chicken mom, and she always cracked me up because she had this obsession with her daughters getting married and making good matches, and she was very into herself, and she had these fake, spells of whatever, and her character always cracked me up in the books, in the movies, everywhere. As a mother now, I appreciate her character in a new light. So I felt that she really just wanted the best for her girls. She knew that one day when her husband died, because back then, lifespan was shorter, she knew that their lives would be in jeopardy since there was no son, and she knew the realities of the situation that they were in. And again, Jane Austen is making commentary on, it sucks that women have to live their lives this way, because really, why should we have to find these happy marriages or not happy marriages in order to, make a life for ourselves? And so her heroines are always very, they go along with what's going on, but satirical comedy about it, or they're very, hesitant to the idea, and they end up falling in love despite these things that their mother looks for and things like that. And I kind of thought it was funny because she really just is trying to make sure that they're going to be able to survive into their, adult and after adult lives and not be stuck in the same kind of situation she has, where even though, she loved her husband and he's a gentleman, so he has a decent amount of money, it's not enough money to provide a living for all 5 of her daughters. And so I just thought that commentary was really funny from the young me perspective of oh my god, she's so annoying, to the older me perspective of, well, hang on, she does have their best interests at heart, even though the way she's saying it kind of sucks. So I thought that was kind of cute. And then number 2, who is the worst mom in books? So in mom figure or, raiser in books. And so my choice for that was Aunt Reed from Jane Eyre. I felt like she was the worst. She was supposed to be raising this child. She and her husband had taken in this child that was her husband's niece. She was supposed to be raising her. She had her own kids. It seemed like the perfect scenario for someone who has lost their parents. She basically betrays that trust. When you raise a child, when you take a child in, or when you raise that child, you are entrusting, they are entrusting basically their life, their upbringing, their futures into your hands. And so the way she treated Jane in Jane Eyre was shitty. It was really cruel, it was mean, it was heartbreaking. And then in the end, when Jane returns, when Aunt Reed is dying, and basically, even though what she did was horrible, she still kind of forgives her and tells her it's okay. And although she's not saying, yeah, it's okay that you mistreated me, she's firm about it, and she's saying, what you did wasn't great, but I can forgive you, She's risen above that and gotten over it and not been selfish and said, no, I won't, I'm going to withhold how I feel from you. She's moved on. And that shows Jane's growth as a child to adult to young woman and potential mother down the road. And it shows how much Aunt Reed is just awful, because even though she did raise her for a time and then sent her off, to this school where they were going to basically abuse her emotionally and things like that, her things that she affected Jane's life don't necessarily have to permanently affect Jane's life, because Jane can move beyond that. So I thought that was a really interesting layout of that relationship. So number 3 is, what are the best moms in books? And I have another kind of classic book that I'm using for this, and I'm using 2 characters from this book. So the entire series of Anne of Green Gables has always been one of my favorites. I was introduced to it in elementary school by a teacher who knew I loved reading, and then later that same teacher ended up doing it as a popcorn reading class, and I rented the movie then, and I'm a purist for Megan Follows. So I honestly think that Marilla is a shining example of motherhood. Even though she wasn't actually Anne's mother, she raised her, she taught her about life. She was firm, but she also encouraged her to be her own person. There was that period in the beginning where she was going to give her away to Mrs. Blewett, I think it was, and she ended up going, I wouldn't give a dog I liked to that Blewett woman, because I think she sees the value of raising a child in a loving home, in an encouraging environment, and not just discarding them and thinking that they're for your service, that they're there to serve you, they're there to be an example from you to the world. They're there to be their own person. And even though Marilla in the beginning is very strict and she wants to raise Anne a certain way, and Matthew is more of the loving parent, their relationship over the following books grows, and you see Marilla grow as a person, and you see Anne grow as a person, and Anne kind of changes Marilla, and Marilla changes Anne, and it's this beautiful harmony of motherhood that I just could not get over. I loved Marilla as a mother, even though she wasn't technically her mother. And then the second character is in carrying on from that, Anne. If you read the later books, I believe it's Anne's House of Dreams and a couple of the other, I think there's 2 other ones with the kids in them. Anne has 6 kids, and she ends up becoming, again, another shining example of motherhood in the way that she raises her children. She lets them be their own individual person. There are 6 of them. She doesn't try to lump them all together and turn them all into little, pegs of one type of child. She encourages their individuality. She raises them with creativity and bravery and strength by exposing them to different things. And then also, she addresses her own shortcomings in motherhood when she has her difficult birth with one of her sons. I think it's Jem. With one of her sons, she almost dies, and she have to hand him off to a nursemaid so that she can recover, basically. And he develops this really close, motherly relationship with the nursemaid, and they keep her on, and they have her. And Anne understands that. She understands that he developed a bond with this other woman, and despite the fact that she's his mother and she loves him and she feels a little bit of jealousy, she accepts her and doesn't chastise him for having that bond or treat the other woman in any less way. She's still part of their family very much. She's the nursemaid, so she's still part of their family. And she develops her own unique brand of mothering this child, which to me just was a beautiful example of motherhood not going the way you want it to, and yet still thriving as a mother. And individuality of every child is different. No child is going to be the same. So to me, that is just a beautiful example of motherhood, and it's kind of an underappreciated series, I think, stuff because it's more of an old classic, but it's beautiful, and I wish that Netflix and some of the other streaming channels that have attempted to do Anne would do it truly. I've watched parts of the Hallmark one, I've watched parts of the Netflix one, I've watched parts of the Amazon one, and honestly, I just can't get into them because the essence of L.M. Montgomery's writing is so beautiful, so magical, that if they could capture like Tolkien or Harry Potter or any of the other big series, they would see that she has her own magic in her writing. And yes, it's very flowery, but it's beautiful and it deserves to be addressed. There's a lot there that's not just about a young girl being spunky and going and getting married and then losing herself. There's a lot of individuality there. There's a lot of creativity. There's a kid that she helps encouraged to learn to be a writer, and she encourages that, and it's kind of showing how teachers can influence even beyond childhood, you know, and so I just really love that series. So anyway, I love the moms in that series specifically. So section 4 will come up next. Okay, so section 4 is if you write about moms. Question 1 is tropes that you avoid. Question 2 is tropes that you embrace in your writing, all about motherhood. And question 3 is fave mom, gram, raiser moments in your own writing. So I'm going to kind of summarize this section because I have a lot of spoilers related to the motherly relationships in my YA fantasy, and that's the book I'm going to talk about. The tropes I avoid is the perfect mother relationship, but the tropes that I avoid in my writing is the flowery, perfect mother. I want a flawed mother because a lot of our choices in life, a lot of things that we have that happen can come from a very flawed relationship in our relationship with our parents. And so for me, flawed mothers are the way to go because there's a lot there. So the tropes that I embrace is similarly, I really go towards the kind of abused child. I know that's a big right now, like with Harry Potter living under the stairs and things, that's kind of a big thing right now. But there's other ways to do it. And I personally am addressing that in 2 of my stories. One is my mystery middle grade project that's not the mouse story, and that one is super under wraps. My husband doesn't even know about that, but I'm mentioning it here. And my other one is my YA fantasy. My main character, Sebastian, is raised by a grandmother who is super, super evil, and has basically set him up for this whole story. And so that is going to be kind of a trope that I'm going to really embrace, but in kind of a dark way. So my fave mother grand moment in my writing is addressing that. It's basically how she sets him up in life and all the things that she has created in him, the self-doubt, the fears, the, you know, pretty much every negative aspect you could give to a child, sets him up to go on this adventure and live this pretty epic story. And then I think down in book 2 or 3, I can't remember because I've spread it out longer, he ends up discovering the sacrifice that his birth mother made, and the sacrifice and the struggle that she went through to save him. And so I feel like that is like going to be one of my epic moments of writing that I'm so excited to write, because it's going to be like the juxtaposition between the absolute darkness that someone can sort of give you when they raise you, and then the absolute purity of motherhood. And I'm really excited to write that. So stay tuned for the Scrolls of Ellyron, the Lavender Mirror. That's probably going to be in the works at the end of the year. I have a lot of it written. I'm editing a ton of it. I'm changing some of the storylines because I am super excited about this story. I have been talking about it all through my videos and my channel, and I know where it's going now. So also be on the lookout for Addie and the Baby Dragon, my current picture book that I wrote for my kids, that's out on Amazon right now. I'll put the link below. And I hope you guys have a really great Mother's Day. Thank you to Petrie for this tag, and I enjoyed doing it. She didn't tag me, but she said any mother's welcome, so I'm really excited that I got to do it. And everybody have a happy Mother's Day. Bye!